Oh, that was short. Yeah, 5 seconds instead of 5 minutes. We're live, everybody. Tony will be here in 15 minutes. Mark, unfortunately, is very busy preparing for Christmas holidays, I think. But fortunately, I'm very happy that we have Byron here, the creator behind Carnivore Beats. He is also the creator of the music in our intro, usually. And we have got the great Stephen Thomas over here. So I will just ask right away, if you have any questions, put them in the chat, because Stephen is here. We can be interesting discussion. Yes, so let's head off. But yeah, first of all, how are you doing, guys?
I was waiting. I've been polite. I was waiting for Byron there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, good. Been an interesting last few weeks with eating a little bit out of the norm of the carnivore lifestyle, and the body tells you that it definitely doesn't agree with the body system at all, and you know it straight away, and you can feel how bad you feel, and you can feel how addictive it can be. But going into the end of the year, definitely feeling good.
I saw it. Yeah.
Why are you doing that, Byron? Why are you eating these things?
Well, the part of me always likes to touch on stuff that you used to eat and then see how the body feels and reacts, because I think, as well as that, from being a personal trainer, as well as one of my backgrounds, is that people seem to think that when they're feeling all invincible and they feel good, it's like, oh, okay, I can have all these things and I can have these bad things again and all that. But it's a matter of trying to, I like to use it as a reminder. So maybe every few months I will indulge in things I used to. But the only difference now is I still make sure I maintain a lot of animal meat and foods overall compared to what I would have before. But I have them before just to see how the body reacts. And it's just a reminder that the body, as much as it heals and it feels good, poison is never something you can carry on consuming, no matter how strong you feel.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, the reason I asked that is because I've been doing this recently, because I'm trying out the Lumen device, which tells you from your breath whether you are burning fats or carbs. It's been an interesting weekend, and I did share this with you, Peter, but because I wanted to keep this fresh so people can see this is genuine and live and stuff like that. So yesterday, my dog was attacked by a very vicious dog, and I had to scoop. We were just walking, and it came from behind, and I noticed and had to scoop him up. My dog's a little sort of Maltese Terrier poodle cross, so I lifted him up, and this dog, it was a bit like Scooby-Doo, ran past and screeched because he missed the dog because I picked him up, and turned round, and I had my dog here. This one just launched at me and at my dog. And we thought that he'd ripped his leg off. This is quite serious. I mean, we've been in with surgery yesterday, and he bit some of his tail off. And, so very stressful, very, very stressful. I'm reliving this moment. Last night, I didn't sleep very well. And I know this is quite a grisly story, but it's also interesting because I like physiology and biochem and all that, I'd started my Lumen experiment about 3 days ago, and boy, I was burning a lot of carbs yesterday, a lot. And people say cortisol, they don't know what they're talking about. It's actually noradrenaline and adrenaline that would have caused me to do that, because that's a nerve signal rather than a steroid hormone. A nerve signal is much, much faster, and it makes you really. I'll get to the point, Byron, in a second about asking you about the bad food, and the whole point of these hormones is to keep your homeostasis going. Well, I tell you, one of the things that it says in the textbooks is it makes the clarity and your awareness hyper vigilant in this quick moment. Last night, I could play you every detail in my dream, every single detail of that moment, which was possibly seconds. And I could tell you and speak about it for minutes with every little. One of the weird things that I remember is It's not making me a hero. This is just what happened. This dog was obviously very vicious, and I put my hand down there, and a few people said, well, weren't you scared it was going to rip your arm off? I'm like, no, that definitely did not enter my head. But what did was I wanted to punch it just as a protective thing, but I'm an animal lover, even though I'm carnivore. I don't think that's true, but we kill less animals than the vegans do to live this way. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to punch it. In billionths of a second, I'm going to push him away, which he did, which was, also very interesting. And, so the day before, I'd actually eaten carbs deliberately to see what would happen with the lumen. And I was burning something like 55% fat, 45% carbohydrates, according to the lumen device, which if you don't know what that is, that's a breath thing. Because I'm big on, if we talk about bloods, that's what's in the blood, not what's in the tissue. And, with the testing, you can also do urine analysis, which is obviously waste, and poop analysis, which is obviously waste, and breath is obviously sort of waste. But if you can get more metrics, it's interesting, I think, for people. Well, after that event, I was due to do the breath test, and my carbohydrate burning after that event was 88%.
Sure.
So, yes, adrenaline did push my blood glucose up in a proper physiological way.
And with carbs, you mean endogenously produced glucose, right?
Yeah, demand driven, absolutely. Because I hadn't eaten that many cups. Now, I think an interesting thing, and this isn't nutrition, I think this is situational. Today, all I've wanted is, I've given up coffee. All I've wanted is coffee. dairy, and even flirted with a little bit of chocolate, and it's like, wow, you can. So the point I'm making is, to Byron in particular, is it's very easy to get off track, but you really do feel, and I'm even saying this when I felt it was advantageous at that particular moment. I don't feel great about everything. I think I would have done better if I'd been 100% pure carnivore. I just think I would have been. So I was beating myself up that I didn't act as quick as I feel I could, and I didn't lift him as high as I think I could. And I honestly think that was the fact that the day before I was eating carbs purely to see what happened on the lumen. I really genuinely think that. So I think that what we put into our bodies has such a far-reaching effect, and we just, like Byron said, you remember very quickly how bad you feel.
I'm very curious, Stephen. In your case, you're doing an experiment, but is there secretly also the subconscious thought, like, well, I'm doing this experiment now, so I can eat those carbohydrates. I have the right to take them right now. An excuse.
Well, that's a brilliant thing, and I would have to say no, in all my honesty, because I've deliberately eaten things that I really liked in the past. When I did my continual glucose monitor experiment, which was nearly a year ago, in November of last year, I thought, well, I might get hooked on these things again, but boy, I did not. I really, exactly, again, I can't echo enough what I just said. By the end of it, I felt crap. I put on weight. I was inflamed and all that sort of stuff. And this time I had a thing I used to like, which was a ham and cheese toasty. That was what I had. And within 3 bites of saying to my wife, this is just not doing it for me. 15 years ago, I would have loved this. I would have been yum, 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 to the point where I didn't even want to finish it. But I get what you're saying, because people, these people that are adding carbs back in, a lot of them, I think they're looking for any reason to justify their addiction. Same with coffee, for example.
Well, every few months or so, you'll see a research explaining why coffee has certain beneficial properties, and that you have to make coffee in a certain way, and you have to filter it properly, then it doesn't raise cholesterol. And for who cares about cholesterol? But when I read those things, and I can be off of coffee for like months, but when I read it, something switches in my head, and I think I can go to the supermarket next day and buy coffee. It's so easy.
It's confirmation bias, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, actually, I still know at that time that it isn't true. So I really know it. So
but that's the thing, though, is that like once you've been eating an animal-based or meat-type lifestyle for a long period of time, it's easier to switch off from the carbohydrates or those type of sugars. It's a lot easier to turn off. Whereas if you're still going through that cleaning phase or that healing phase, I think it's a lot harder. Like it's so easy to get caught back on it, because the difference now is that when you've been eating, like especially for me now, beginning of next year will be coming on to 2 years, but it's when you're going on it, you recognize it straight away. As an example, you know straight away, wow, I can feel I want to have more. You recognize the symptoms, you recognize those addictions, and you recognize the effects in your body. The same as like, I know I had to give up coffee as well. And also in the last couple of weeks, I'd be having a few more cups than what I would normally, as to just plain hot water or anything like that. But straight away, I go back to the same things as before, is that I'll have certain coffee and I'll know straight away that there's potentially an effect coming, because I know that coffee might have not been a good make or anything else from the fungus that grows in it and all that. And I can feel straight away the effect, and I can feel some of my symptoms that want to come back. They start to like surface, like where I have vision issues and all that. And I know, okay, frick, I need to make sure I don't have any more of this, because it's clear it's not that great. And then you'll feel like within a day your body's recovered from it and you feel good again. You might say have a coffee from another place that you know the coffee's been cleaned and the beans have been ground like quite well, and you don't have any issues. But you go back to another place where you know that coffee affects you. You have it again and you feel the effect straight away. So you know coffee does have an effect on the body, regardless of whether people bring out all these health claims and all that or not. So if your body has that autoimmune issue or a neurological effect to it, it's like, man, you know that it's these health claims that they put out there might help some people. I'm not going to say it doesn't, but I know it doesn't have that same effect on me. Like there's certain things that you have and straight away you can feel the effect on you. It's like ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, it's an interesting thing when people talk about addiction, and nobody smokes for their health. I've never had anyone that they still smoke. So you switch off your intelligence sometimes when you're addicted, and most people know. I mean, a lot of my clients, they do what's called a mood and food diary, and I say just be honest, and they'll send a picture of something and they'll say, I know this is 50 grams of carbs and this is not going to help my diabetes, but I had it. And I always say, well, you know, what made you have it? Have it. There's no judgment. I'm just interested, because we need to look at what the triggers are. And I mean, I did a Substack actually, which we should be out tomorrow, I think, about coffee, because coffee stops you feeling sleepy rather than it wakes you up. And I know that sounds like a really semantic argument, but it antagonizes the adenosine receptors. And if anyone knows what that means, ATP is adenosine triphosphate. Well, that's the energy currents of the body. Well, when adenosine is circulating, it's a signal to the body about the energy production, how much energy is around. So if you're using up a lot of ATP, which is just taking the phosphate off, it's not destroying the adenosine, that will circulate. As it builds up, your body will go, wow, we must be using a lot of ATP, therefore you need to rest, mate. Well, when you have coffee, it stops that reception. So you're going against your natural rhythm, because your body knows how much energy you've used. And I think this is what I was saying to Peter before we started. When you know the mechanism of these things, it can help people to make decisions, because as soon as you say you are biohacking your system in the wrong way, your body is saying you used a lot of energy, Peter, so you need to have a rest, and you drink some coffee, and you literally tell your body, oh, shut up. I'm going to carry on and do a podcast, and then I'm going to do some editing, and then I'm going to go and do some work. Long term, that's not a good thing to do. You know, then you've got the acrylamides in coffee, which can accumulate in your joints and give you joint pain. I'm not taking the fun out of coffee, by the way. I used to drink it up until age 60. I would have Swiss Sweeter decaf, and I like the ritual, and I like the social side of it, and the taste. You know, I really enjoy coffee. And if I'm not having a great day, as I just said today, all I've wanted coffee because my dog's, you know, in rehab. We've got to go back to the surgeon or the vet, you know, tomorrow, and so I really fancied a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I always notice that especially when I drink coffee at work, it's from a machine with non-organic coffee, and it's bad quality anyway. And I feel great for 5 minutes or so, and I know already upfront that I don't like the taste. I will feel bad after 5 or 10 minutes. Probably my liver is trying to break down the caffeine. So I don't know how much impact that has, but I imagine that it's a bit like alcohol, that your liver will be, apart from getting the wrong signals about how much energy you have, you will also be active breaking down toxins. And why I like to not drink coffee is actually intuitively already that if I don't drink coffee, I feel my natural state of energy. So I might be feeling tired and so on. And it's not so much that I don't drink coffee to fall asleep more easily at night or so, but just to realize how much energy I have left. And so I can stop doing things at the right moment and not necessarily go to bed, but because I think personally that I sleep well on coffee. I never noticed huge differences. But yeah, I do realize that my energy signals are off.
Yes. Are you going to put any other comments in? Because there's a few people saying hello and good evening and all that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I hope everybody can see it over here. But,
they're automatically put up. Yes. Right. Okay. Sorry.
And coffee always triggers remarks and questions. Yeah, that's
because Adam's mentioned my fatty latte. That's my way of sort of substituting coffee, which is 35 grams of butter, a pinch of salt, 2 egg yolks, 100 milliliters of boiling water, and a vanilla extract, which I know isn't carnivore, by the way. I am aware of that, but it makes it. It's very simple. It looks like a latte. It gives you all the benefits of a latte without the coffee or the caffeine, acrylamide, whatever. I used to do Swiss Water decaf, so it was clean as a whistle, and it was freshly ground beans, but it still got me aching. It still gave me inflammation. So the fatty lattes are a sort of, and that was Coach Cherish. I always like to give credit where it's due. It's not my recipe. I just popularize it. Coach Cherish at the steak, well, she was at the Steak and Butter Gang. I think she works for Philippa Vardia now. But anyway, it was a brilliant way to replace coffee. Now, the problem is, of course, if you're not good with dairy, butter is dairy. So there's always something that doesn't quite work for some people. And I see that, the primal lifestyle, that's Carl, isn't it? I think. He says, I prefer bone broth, but when I do have coffee, it's decaf and with butter. Yeah. So, yeah, it's interesting. It is a topic that people like, which hence I did my Substack on it. Because
I think that coffee is a nice vector for supplements, like iodine, for example, or salt, and it's even a vector for butter in a way, because I see a lot of influencers and new carnivores using coffee as a way to get a lot of butter in, which I don't fully agree with, because sometimes you see like half a stick of butter and then Americano style of coffee, and they drink 1 liter of coffee, full fat.
I used to do that quite a bit when, especially when we used to be on the low carb, when Tim Noakes first came out with all the stuff and used to have the bulletproof coffee. Also butter and all that. But like now, even if I have a cup of coffee, I'll make sure I'm having enough salt for the day, because I find that it obviously affects my salt in the body. And I don't know if you can maybe touch on this, Stephen, a bit, but one effect of me having to stop coffee, and I did believe that it was a part of a cause, is on your lower part below your calves, the skin there. I used to have skin issues there, well, still have some skin issues. And I found that once I'd stopped coffee for a long period of time, the skin would clear up a bit, almost like the same type of skin issue you would get as a diabetic or something with a lack of circulation. But I had a lower back op many years ago, and I know the doctor at that time had cut my sympathetic nerves, which also obviously can contribute towards that. But once I had stopped coffee for a period of time, I could see the skin improving. So I knew that there was an effect in terms of the neurological system, that it had an effect on me specifically. So when I had stopped coffee, I could see the improvement in the skin markers, and it was like, so I was correct in terms of somehow the way it was affecting it or contributing towards it. Just obviously on that whole aspect of it, and even like you were saying earlier, Peter, is that when you stop coffee for a long time and you go back to having it, because I never had sugar or anything in my coffee, it doesn't taste the same anymore. It's almost like your body's saying,
True,
don't put this in, don't put this in.
Well, one thing that I started to appreciate even more on carnivore, I was already a sort of coffee aficionado, or I don't know how to call it, but I would like to buy the organic coffee, good quality, all this stuff, and grind it in certain ways and so on. And on carnivore, I tend to do this more often as well. So get really good coffee that you appreciate the taste, and then a small cup is usually enough. And of course, it means again that you don't filter it in the right way and so on. So it's always a thing, but and you can. We can probably talk a lot about organic versus inorganic or non-organic coffee and all those things, but
well, just to pick up on Byron's observation about his lower limbs, you see, so caffeine is a vasoconstrictor, the posh way of saying it reduces the blood flow, and adenosine, which we just talked about as an energy marker, promotes vasodilation and it improves blood flow, which would make sense because it's, like I say, we're looking at it as an energy proxy marker. So if you've got it, it wants to make sure that you're not constricted in the blood flow, in the skin, especially in the extremities. So that makes total sense. Insulin resistance, which is a construct, not really a thing, but it's more a product of cross inhibition in the Randall cycle. A marker of what people call insulin resistance is, having no hair on your toes and no hair in the lower limbs. And I think it's more to do with those sort of things. When I believed in high carb up to age 50, I'd had constant problems for maybe 40 years, 35 years with athlete's foot. I'd tried everything, talc and powder, and using a hairdryer in between my toes, and powders in my trainers and all that sort of stuff. And once I started eating this way, it just totally went without any application of acids or tapes or powders and all that sort of stuff. So, I think we're just products of a very bad diet in the past. And as soon as you take those things out, I know I'm looping back, but I just think, as you both said at the beginning, you're doing things that occasionally doing things and they're not right. It's so ingrained. I call it grain washing because, most people are stuck with bread and potatoes, for instance, and those habits are really hard to kick, and you get that, situational stimulus. Mine one was when I first started low carb and I went to the cinema. I thought, wow, I really want a hot dog and some popcorn and Coke. I never want that anywhere, even when I was high carb, but I did want it at the movies.
It's almost like a habit.
Yes, well, it is. Yeah, exactly. And, it is a bad habit. That was Andrew Scarborough you just put up there. If you need caffeine for energy, you have problems. And
and the same with carbs and sugar, right?
Yeah.
It's
it's brilliant. Nice to see you, Andrew.
Yeah, and the coffee is maybe a nice way to segue in the topic of circadian rhythm. So I'm curious, Byron, also, did you experience... also by introducing non-carnivore foods right now, but also when you drank coffee, do you experience things like bad sleep or
no,
the rest of your day is off?
Not even from our younger days, I could have coffee and I could take BioPlus, which was something that was supposed to keep you awake as well when I was working night shift, and I could still go fall asleep. So for whatever reason, that never had an effect on me. When people told me, oh, no, I can't have that, then I'll stay awake the whole night. And I'm like, what? I can literally have coffee and I can go sleep straight away. So it didn't seem to have that effect on me as such. Where one thing I have obviously noticed in the time of having to stop coffee and that, and like what we were talking regarding the skin and that, if I have coffee and I don't make sure I'm having enough salts if I have coffee at the time as well. And I'm sure some of the listeners, some people might now think differently, but if you're having cramps, and especially if you're having exercise days and you're drinking a lot of coffee, it could be a contribution towards the cramps, because I find when I have coffee, all of a sudden I can have muscle cramps, and maybe even during the night, because I used to have a lot of muscle cramps during the night, wake up in the morning, when your calves are waking you up with that heavy cramp. And since stopping coffee and even had reducing it in that and making sure I was having enough salt at the time, you can feel straight away no more cramps, no more waking up during the night with cramps, nothing like that. But I do notice that if I have coffee and I don't have enough salt while having coffee, the cramps come back.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, coffee is a known diuretic, so it's promoting more urine output, and for urine you need some electrolytes. So I mean, you bang the nail on the head there, Byron. I mean, that's it. You can supplement with the electrolytes that you're losing to counteract the problem with coffee. And this is the thing. I mean, Jerry Seinfeld is a stand-up I really love, and he says how stupid us humans are, because if we do something that's going to hurt our head, we don't stop doing the thing that's going to hurt our head. We wear a crash helmet, so we're always doing stuff. And well, that coffee's not going to help me, so I have 2 choices: not have the coffee or add extra salt. I think I'll have the coffee and I'll add extra salt. We do it all the time. And I think a lot of influencers try to come across as, they do everything perfectly. I don't. I mean, I live in the real world. I admitted a stressful day made me want to go off the rails. And I think I'm one of the more strict carnivores. Yes, I do some N equals 1. And I think I keep saying I'm going to give that up, but I feel it's quite valuable content. And helpful for other people. But if something's super stressful and I feel like having a coffee or I feel like having some chocolate, I will tell people that happened to me. And if I give in, I will also tell people that happened to me. So I did in the end think, right, I'm going to have a cup of coffee, and oh wow. So then I had to talk to myself and say, but in the end I'm going to feel worse. And this is the thing about self-talk, I suppose, that we could get into, where how you talk to yourself is really important. It's, again, the principle of when you're on a plane, if there's a disaster, they always say put your oxygen mask on first if you've got a family, to make sure you can look after them. And that was the thing. I've got a wife and I've got a dog, and I want to be as good as I can. We need to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, I can do that, by the way. I mean, I'm always up at 5:30. But if we need to get up at stupid o'clock because the dog's in agony, we've got a vet that's 24 hours. I want to be vital and up and being able to do it. So I'm not going to go mad with bad foods ever. And I just feel there's too many people ignoring the fact that all these food manufacturers are playing on your addictions, on dopamine, and making everything hyper palatable and deliberately making it addictive, and the packaging. And if you look at any Hollywood produced sitcoms or films, it's very pernicious, but they sort of spread these messages, or they'll all have toast, or if someone has a egg and bacon breakfast, they say, oh, look at that, a heart attack on a plate or something. So it is everywhere. It always makes me tut, because it's so evident that they're all in cahoots. Sorry to sound like I've got a tinfoil hat on, but they are. They are. All the big corporations want to sell you rubbish food that is very profitable for them and bad for our health. And Hollywood, the TV companies, the wonderful BBC, they're all the same. They're all singing from the same hymn sheet, because it's better for their vested interest and not good for our health. So for those people that are struggling with all these things, you are fighting this massive amount of propaganda and power and media influence and clever manipulation. So don't beat yourself too much, basically.
There's definitely, I mean, you touch on that, which is quite good, because recently I've read an article where, won't mention names, but one of the pharmaceutical companies, big branded common one, is all of a sudden involved, or not all of a sudden, but has come out that they're involved now. Your rennet that isn't cheese, they involved with that. And I'm like, well, why would a pharmaceutical company want to be dealing with food ingredients? There's a reason.
Oh, absolutely. They're doing it for your health, and I'm sure it's wonderful reasons. But Andrew, you're right. You know, having a healthy plan for when you've had a long, stressful day. I like to have a hot bath with salts under red light. Is, you know, I think this is it. What I would have called that a plan B when I first started this job. Now that should be plan A. It shouldn't be coffee and a bar of chocolate. It should be, I'm going to have a nice chill out under red light. And that's what Jane does. We use Shakti mats and, you know, like acupressure mats. And I tell you, within 10 minutes of lying on that, you know, you're asleep pretty solid. It's amazing, really, to use these old-fashioned methods that are not medication. They're not supplements. It's just good old-fashioned doing the right thing under the light. You know, before we started, I was saying to Peter about when we talk about getting the right light exposure. Here we are. I'm in the UK and I am artificially lit. So yes, I know I'm a hypocrite, and many people comment on this, but unfortunately, this is partly why we can't live a ancestrally appropriate life, is because we don't live that way anymore. So we have to be realistic. The only way I can get my message out is by sitting in front of lights doing things on a screen. Yeah. I would much rather be outside looking at the stars, but I won't have a roof over my head, literally, because I won't be able to pay the mortgage. So we have to do things that aren't particularly ancestrally appropriate. But what we can do is understand the mechanisms of early morning light and realize it isn't woo-woo. The production of melatonin is absolutely nailed on with light exposure, and not just daylight, but also our nighttime habits, where what actually happens, there's a thing called the suprachiasmatic center in our hypothalamus region of our brain. And what happens when light enters your eye, the back of the eye, so basically, the retina, so we've got where the rods and the cones are, the optic nerve then picks that up, sends a message to the suprachiasmatic center. And that, when the light comes in, will then send a message. And again, it's nerves again. So the nerves, it will go to what's called the paraventricular nucleus, which then sends a nerve signal down the lateral great column of the spine. And then the nerve will go back up to the pineal gland, releasing norepinephrine, which then sends the cascade of taking tryptophan to be converted to 5-HTP, which is converted to serotonin, which is converted to melatonin. And that sends a feedback signal. But that production of melatonin under light conditions is inhibited. So melatonin is very low, and that's a known mechanism. And that's driven by daylight. And it's also driven by artificial light, especially by blue light. So right now, what I'm doing is I'm inhibiting melatonin right now because that light's going into my eye when it should be darkness, and darkness is excitatory. That same pathway is exactly the same, but the action potentials are different in the optic nerve signalings, which is known throughout the rest of that system. And loads of melatonin is made, and that makes me want to sleep. Melatonin, that's not controversial. And it's nothing to do with cortisol, because people talk about circadian rhythms of cortisol. Cortisol is not really involved in circadian rhythms. It's a secondary player. The catecholamines, which are the nerve signals, and things like noradrenaline and adrenaline, or epinephrine for people in America. And it's a known mechanism. So it's not woo-woo. We know that darkness promotes melatonin. We know that, and we know that the way it goes, and we know it's all in the nerves. And you know, we can get the substrate. So if you need tryptophan, you can get that from plants and you can get it from animals. It's more bioavailable from animals, but you can get it. So anyone eating anyway can get better if they start exposing themselves to early morning sunlight, which is a really good thing to do anyway, and also trying to manage their exposure to non-native blue light in particular in the evening. So I'm going to be here until 8:30 because I'm doing this live and then my live on YouTube and then in our school community. Well, that's a lot of exposure to the wrong light. That's not good for me, on top of like the stressed dog.
Yeah, and probably like things like EMF radiation, but also the fact that you are socially interacting with people, you're busy, your mind is busy. While in the evening, you should be slowing down by having a slow walk maybe, or sitting in the couch reading a book. Reading a book is maybe already tricky sometimes, but I'm curious, how do you think about the relative importance of circadian rhythm things? And by the way, in the meantime, I'm also curious what you think about how to treat the jet lag, because that's interesting. It's another example of some totally unnatural behavior, and what can we do about it? So
great question. Sorry, Byron, it's sort of sitting there quiet and that, but feel free to jump in. I mean, yes, jet lag, I mean, it's well known, isn't it, that people take melatonin to try and counteract the jet lag, but you're doing again the same thing. And it's nice to see Jonathan in the room, by the way. You are basically, you're trying to buck the trend of what you're doing. You're trying to get around things that aren't really that natural, but it is the real world. So you have to do your best, which is why they're called supplements. So many people that criticize any way of eating, you know, vegan, oh, why are you supplementing? Or carnivore, why are you supplementing? Well, because we can't do something that's ancestrally appropriate. And some people do have to travel halfway across the world, and some people do have to do that. Otherwise, they can't pay the mortgage. So we've got to do what we can. So if we understand circadian rhythms, which, is important, like I say, many people immediately focus on cortisol, and it really is not a big player. It's a secondary player, definitely. It's more driven by the medulla of the adrenals, which is the nerve signaling. That makes total sense because it's all about, you know, the sympathetic nervous system dealing with it, then much quicker signals everywhere. So it's not cortisol, steroid hormone, which is slower acting, and we are bucking that trend. I mean, I think light exposure is actually underestimated, but it's so blooming obvious when you talk about it. It makes total sense. If we could, but it isn't the be all and end all.
So I also wanted to, like you would talk, like with the lights and that, in terms of the effect. There's definitely a difference between sunlight, which our bodies have been designed specifically for the sunlight, and especially with LED lights, because I found that in certain shops, depending on what type of LEDs they're using, it has an effect on my visual impact. And sometimes it starts to then cause an aura, and I'm like, I have to literally get out of that shopping center or that area, wherever I am, depending on those lights, and just to have a break, because all of a sudden you can see how it starts to affect your like all of us. It's like when you look at the sun if you look at the sun for a little bit, then you look away and you get that aura. Instantly on certain lights, certain LED lights, I get that effect straight away, and I know it's that bulb that's affecting me. So
it's the flicker. I mean, LEDs flicker. That's the thing. So the old incandescent lights, the old light bulbs with the filaments are much healthier if you do have to light somewhere. That's definitely proven.
Even those, right? Because at the 50 hertz, the 50 hertz is still present. But the light here in the kitchen, I deliberately switched it off because you would see it on the camera. It's flickering at a certain frequency. Certain phase difference, probably.
If you've got one of these and you use facial recognition, I think it's every 40 seconds it beams at your face. It definitely does that. So I definitely I always have my phone face down or not in the room if I can help it. I never sleep with it in the same room. I charge it, a long way away. it's not in the bedroom, it's down the hall. So I have things on there to try and reduce the EMF exposure. And many people think, well, that's all woo-woo. Well, but it's documented everywhere. And
let me tell you, Stephen, that nowadays I'm more focused on health and carnivore diet, lifestyle, and all those things. But 5 years ago, on the standard diet, I spent a lot of attention and a good part of my salary on hi-fi. So I was totally interested in that. Mm-hmm. But it's actually funny to see how it's very much related to health and the EMF story that we're talking about, because you have to totally free your hi-fi system from EMF and radio interference to get perfect, clear signals and really realistic sound. And the same holds for, so there's a big overlap between electricity supplies in hospitals, for example, where they filter out these things, and hi-fi equipment. They also both are equally expensive, but that's another thing. But I also had these things like on my main power supply in the house, I have these stickers that are supposed to, with some quantum techniques, to remove radiation. So I'm not so sure about the theories behind it, but it does do something. It truly does, because you can hear it. And that's just, I mean, it's really not woo-woo.
So it's also the whole importance of why, yes, we don't live in a perfect world. So for anybody to say that they're perfect at their eating, or perfect at everything, because like you were saying earlier, Stephen, is that stress has come into our lives. And it was even like when I was a trainer, it's easy for trainers to tell people, oh, eat like this, be like this. But a trainer's living in the gym the whole time. And if they haven't been on the other side of the equation, because you get some youngsters that go into training and they're trainers pretty much most of their life up until their 20s, 30s, but they haven't been exposed to the normal work environment as such, all that. So it's all easy when you're living in a gym. But when you got your stresses that happen in life, people react to stresses different way. And like you said, like, oh, you'll go have a coffee. I'm also like that. Like, you stress, and when you feel a bit more stressed out, it's like you automatically, okay, I want to have that cup of coffee type thing. And the same when it comes to anything else. So the whole importance of trying to make sure you're eating as best as you can gives your body the best opportunity to basically fight all these things that are fighting against us. With regards to light, we know obviously light affects us the same way. In terms of our circadian rhythm and grounding, in other words, like if people don't get to walk barefoot enough on the earth and don't get to be out in the sun quite a bit, have you had anything in terms of the grounding sheets or the earthing sheets, whatever you want to call it? Because we recently got one to see, because I see it basically on the studies, and that there seems to be some sort of effects that they show in terms of helping with inflammation, and obviously helping with sleep better. Do you think that has a sort of an impact if people aren't getting that natural remedy in terms of walking on the earth and getting the energy flow through in the body?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I have a grounding sheet on the bed, so that might tell you where my leanings are. But I would say when you're barefoot and you're outside, there are so many other things that you're doing. You're having sunlight, on your skin. You are outside, away from all the devices. So you get the benefits of grounding, which is literally just electrons entering your body, which will reduce oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is the loss of electrons, so it's pretty straightforward. But if you can't do that, then having a grounding mat is going to be helpful, and you can go really into the weeds, and you can have a meter that tells you whether it's functioning or not. We did that, and I would never recommend anything if I didn't think it worked. I haven't got an affiliate link. I'm not here to sell affiliate links. I'm just talking generally about it. So we have a grounding mat on the bed, which is obviously well grounded. And the problem is people think they're going to lie on it, and the next day they wake up, everything's going to be resolved. It's going to be fantastic. And it isn't a magic wand. It's gradual. So if you've not grounded for, let's say, 50 years, 2 nights on a grounding mat are not going to do it. But over time, you will see benefits. Now, using my dog as an example about this way of eating, the medications the vet gave, there's no way I would do that to my dog. There's way too many. There's way too much dosage. And I think when the vet sees the dog tomorrow, he's going to go, I don't understand. I've never seen this, because we've got a 6-year-old raw carnivore dog. And you would not believe that he was being operated on yesterday. You would not believe it. Yes, the side effects of the surgery have actually been more problematic, like a breathing issues sort of come out of that, which I think is the sedation and, the stress and the trauma. But they were like, oh, he's going to be on these meds for 2 weeks, gabapentin and paracetamol, a few other things. And, when you deal with these things, and this is not medical advice, by the way, and you should always take the advice of your healthcare professional. I know my stuff. I was trained in this. I've got a GP referral certificate, so doctors could get people to me, refer people to me. But I will speak to the vet tomorrow and say, look, I haven't followed everything you said, because I've looked at him and certain things he doesn't need. I certainly don't like the side effects or combination of 2 of them. And he's going to heal within a week without a shadow of a doubt. He's definitely not going to be 2 weeks. He doesn't need, the big collar. He's clever enough to be told once, don't touch your tail. And he has not touched his tail. She's bandaged up and, been operated. Well, what's left of his tail has been operated on. And he doesn't nudge it. He doesn't need that. But what he does need is to be as natural as possible. So all the things we're doing is exactly what we did yesterday, letting him out, running around, playing with him, feeding him raw meat. All those things that you wouldn't expect from a dog that literally 12 hours previous had just been let out of a horrible situation. And they're resilient. So humans, you look after your pets. If you've got pets, you know this. You look after your pets better than you look after yourself sometimes. So you've got to treat yourself as good as you would treat your pet. I would never give my pet anything that's bad for them. So, Peter, I'm going to pick on you again. I would not give my dog coffee, I would not give him some bread and stuff like that. So I've got to man up, and I've got to say, well, why am I doing it to me?
Yeah,
why am I,
totally true. Yeah.
So you've got to look at that and maybe take yourself out. So the thing I was talking about, self-talk, I think self-talk is really interesting. How you talk to yourself. If you wake up in the morning and say, right, today I'm not going to have this, I'm not going to have that, whatever it is that you're saying you're not going to have is immediately in your mind. It's a bit like when someone says, don't, whatever you do, think of pink elephants, where you have to think of pink elephants to not think of them. So I wake up every morning, right, today's going to be great. I'm just going to have fatty meat. I'm just going to have my fatty lattes if I want a hot drink. I'm going to make sure I get to the gym. I get to the gym every morning, or not every morning because that's overtraining, but when I need to go, I go. And it's that positive self-talk. But if you do something wrong, try not to, beat yourself up over it. Yeah, you made a mistake. You can rationalize it if you want, but then just think your next meal is going to be carnivore.
Yeah, well, that's a typical thing that happens in type 1 diabetes, because when you have a hypo, you blame yourself because you injected too much insulin or you did something else wrong. So what are you going to do? You're either later on, you're just going to do crazy stuff. But typically what you see is that people are going to overcompensate, or they'll start eating bananas or cookies as hypo corrections, that sort of things. And you put in your mind that it doesn't matter at all. Things like that.
And that's where I agree with you, Stephen, because it is the self-talk. Unfortunately, the health industry puts out an image there and portrays a thing that makes people want to beat themselves up. And we know, again, we don't live in a perfect world, but mentally, to beat yourself up, if you slip up and you eat something bad or you do anything that's outside of your normal diet routine, if you beat yourself up, as we know with anything else, people can go off the track very quickly and very far. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, then you talk yourself out of going back onto that and say, okay, well then I might as well just carry on like this. But at the same time, it's, and I always used to say that to clients in the past as well, is that if you just live by, say, an 80-20 rule, which is not even always the best either, but everybody's different, and it depends on getting to know yourself, how you feel. Because if you know you're a person that's very emotional, then obviously talking to yourself the wrong way is not going to really be in benefit for you. And at least if I found with the majority of the clients that I used to deal with, if I got them to sort of think in terms of the 80-20 rule, like eat 80% good, 20% have that thing that you enjoy, but just know that overall you're on the right path. You're on the right track. Yes, you're going to have the odd speed bump, but it's not like you're trying to go on a dirt road. You're trying to stay on that tar road and hit the odd little bump or the odd pothole or whatever, and that's fine, but you're still going in the same direction. So that self-talk is definitely, it can break you if you're doing it the wrong way. And if you start the day off good, it's like the same. You'll start off the day, you kick your toe and then, oh, this day is just bad. And then you maybe do the next thing, and it can carry on like that if you start putting yourself focused and only looking at that negativity.
Yeah, I think there's a thing it's either Chinese or Japanese, and I'm going to murder the name now. I think it's called kintsugi or something like that, where if they break any crockery or anything that's valuable, they deliberately glue it back together with like a gold or silver to have the history of this damage. They celebrate the history of the damage. Now, if I use yesterday, the dog being attacked, I learned ever such a lot about me and the dog and how vets are treating animals, because he's a raw carnivore dog. He's not been to the vet for 6 years. He's never been poorly. And I've taken that all as, right, okay, I can be a little bit self-reflected. But one thing I learned was his resilience. You know, he was bleeding. His tail was hanging off. He'd just been attacked. And yet he really, once he was in the vets, he was walking around, sniffing everything, coming up to the vet, trying to get a stroke and all that. You know, and I thought, this is a remarkably resilient animal. Now, one of my very good friends is so insightful. He said, don't be fooled by that. Dogs don't show weakness in the wild. They can't show weakness. So he might not be okay, but he's acting okay. And I found that incredibly helpful, because it's very easy. I've had 3 weeks where I've been severely let down by a couple of people who I thought were friends, and they turned out to be not friends at all. And that surprises you. Well, I now looking at it, I've got to be resilient. I've got to not show weakness. I've got to learn from it and grow and be more positive. And I think that's the thing, you know, the old Rudyard Kipling thing. You've got to treat success and failure the same, and just grow from it and think, I'm going to get better tomorrow. So even if you go way off the way you want to eat, tomorrow's another day. Try and be better than you were the day before. But, you know, to sum up some of the bad things I've heard, I've been doing this 16 years, and, you know, the early part of it was a high carb believer. In 11 years, I've been low carb, keto, and then carnivore. And one of the most common things I hear is, well, I'd had something, so I just thought I might as well forget it the whole weekend.
Yeah,
I just went for it the whole weekend. And I'm like doing what both of you did, sort of shaking your head. Yeah, I get why you're saying that, but actually you have just made things a lot worse. Why didn't you just think, right, I've done this thing on Friday, I'm back on it tomorrow, I'm back more, because this is very self-destructive, and it's the way we talk about things is, sorry if it's a boring motif, but it's just the way I think about it. I'm thinking about it today a lot because of what's happened. You can talk yourself out of doing good things really easily by doing something that's easy, but you can't climb a smooth mountain. You have to have rough bits, and that's what's going to make it's worth doing. If it was really easy, we'd all be super fit. So yeah, there's going to be some tough bits, but the tough bits are the things that make you grow and improve and get to the top. And I think that's the thing. So it's all well and good knowing something's not great for you, like Peter, you said about the coffee, and Byron, you said you've gone off track a little bit, but you know it, and you acknowledge it. You're quite open to say it, and you think, well, next time I might not do that. And yeah, that might not be the case the next time. You might give in, you might have a coffee, but at some point, when it comes from within, that's when it matters. It's not willpower. It's just that there's a light bulb moment where you think, I've done this too many times, and this is it. I'm going to stop. However you talk to yourself.
When people start about discipline and willpower, I don't like it because, first of all, for me and a lot of people, starting carnivore diet has a lot to do with just missing out on certain knowledge. And then they see it and they start and try it. And during the 3 weeks, I mean, you can say whatever you want. Starting carnivore is difficult, but in a way, it's also easy, right? You start those 3 weeks, you flow into it, and after 3 weeks, you notice the benefits, and it continues. It's not like it's all willpower or that we are special or anything. And
it's the same, like you were saying, Peter. Though it's the same as that the industry shows everything is a quick fix. The industries, and it's obviously pushed by other big money, but it's never about what I can do just in 30 days. It's never about, like you see these adverts, taking this supplement and look, in 1 week I've lost this dress size and all that. And the problem with that from the psychological point of view is everybody thinks that they expect the body, like you're saying earlier, Stephen, is that sleep on the grounding sheet, which we've also got on, by the way, sleep on the grounding sheet, and then you expect like the next day to be someone totally different. But unfortunately, the body takes weeks and months and maybe even years to heal properly because you've been in such a bad state for so long. So all those little things, and I agree with you, it's not just discipline. It's not just, because if it was that easy, everybody would be able to discipline and sort themselves out easy, because everybody's played some sort of sport at some stage, and to discipline yourself to train all the time is one thing. But if something can be addictive or something can affect your way of thinking, it doesn't matter so much about the discipline. It's about what you're putting in the body that affects that way of thinking, or even how the brain's functioning. Because if someone's not in the right mind, how the hell are they going to eat properly or focus on anything properly if they're sick?
Yeah, absolutely. I just answered something in the chat, but I think I guess it was for you, Peter, which is about TikTok.
Yeah, and we agreed to not talk about age, but I'll put it on the screen right now. 61, right? So that's I'm 41, and Byron, what's your age?
Tuesday I turned 49.
Cool. Wow. I wouldn't say that. Yeah.
No. Thank you.
But yeah, going back to the topic, I mean, it's nice that on a carnivore diet, right? You typically, I mean, most people turn back to their daily routine, and so you stumble on some difficulties sometimes, and coming back to carnivore, you're clear of mind again, and you can have discussions like this, because I mean, there's a lot to optimize and to reflect on what you did. I think that's a thing I personally miss out on still. I could improve that probably, because, well, I didn't say this, but I have had similar things like you, Byron. Certain foods like chocolate, macadamia nuts, they are difficult sometimes. So I've had those periods as well. That
I mean, we used to make our own chocolate at one stage. That a brand used to sell it because people were always wanting to buy chocolate. And we thought, okay, we could make a healthier chocolate with like no sugar and all that. It took us a long time to get it to that point. So I loved my chocolate, obviously quality, and also loved the coffee at the time. But if the things are affecting you, then at some point you either have to reduce them or you have to change them, especially when you recognize that they're affecting you. It's just some people don't realize they're in a bad state because their abnormal has become normal to them. It's only when that thing has disappeared do they realize how it's been affecting them, and how, I mean, that study they did on the rats as well, when they had to swim in milk and then put them in milk and then they swam to the thing, that the rat that was, his mind wasn't right, couldn't find the little place to stand on to sort of get out. It basically would have drowned. And that's the same, to me, it's the same thing now in terms of how our brain works as well. With if you're full of carbohydrates and full of the stuff that's affecting how your brain's working, you're not going to be always thinking straight. And that's the same what you were saying earlier, Stephen, with the dog. Like you had that, and yes, you might have reacted a bit quicker had you not had that done that the day before. And you do see that in terms of, like, this. I don't know if you guys have also had it, but if you have something, too many carbs and not enough, obviously, proteins, and that sometimes the next day, and especially on type 2 diabetics and that, you can wake up feeling like you've had a food hangover, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I think this thing that Lisa's saying about abnormal has become the new normal. We've got to remember that when we allegedly adapt carnivore, actually that's not what we're doing. We're resetting back to how we should eat, and we've adapted to the wrong diet. The diet we were born with and brought up with, most people, is the wrong diet. And now we're just going back to normal. And I think this transmits into sort of bloods as well, because I keep saying to people, these normal ranges in bloods aren't normal. They're abnormal because they're for people that are eating 45 to 65%, carbohydrates. And that's not normal. That's not what happens in nature. That's not how we've evolved. With whatever time period you believe humans have been around, like Homo sapiens sapiens. And I know the last 12,000 years we've been more agricultural, but if you look at 350,000 years, say, approximately, and you look at stable isotope testing, we should be having 80% plus fatty meats. And that's not what people eat. So these normal ranges are not the healthy, optimal ranges. They're the ranges of abnormal people, but they're called normal. And it's very frustrating. And by the way, I've just had a fatty latte delivered because I was expecting this to finish. So
we want to be respectful. I didn't want to interrupt things, but I also wanted to say we want to be respectful of your time, Stephen, because you have a live show in half an hour, the usual one. Everybody go to that one as well.
Yep, YouTube at 7 on my channel, and that's a live Q&A for an hour. And then there's a half hour in our school community if people are part of the school community. I've seen a couple of people on here that are. So
I ask some questions there as well sometimes, and that you have been very helpful.
All right,
there's some great answers, especially I've enjoyed, because my wife's type 2 diabetics, and obviously I have issues with a lot of the medical advice that some of the guys are giving, because I've been down. I mean, we've seen it down the road, and when you see other medical professionals giving and guiding based on what we know, you tend to appreciate those type of podcasts and shows like that. And a few of them that I've watched from yours, there's been some good information. And when people listen to that, I think it's also important that they take that knowledge and they go and ask those questions and investigate themselves. Because I think at the same time, when we come to this whole thing that we're talking about our health, is that people have been conditioned not to ask why.
Yeah. Well, we all suffer. I mean, when I was being given the meds yesterday for the dog, I know it's not me, but it's the same principle. It's still mainstream, it's still gabapentin, it's still paracetamol, basically, and still NSAIDs. I was thinking, it's a tiny dog. This is a lot of meds. This doesn't work for me at all. And I will say to the vet tomorrow, if we'd have done the meds that you suggested, I think he would have just been literally not able to move because he would have been so doped up. And this dog needs activity, And I think motion is lotion. It's a tail injury, so there's not any supportive function for the tail explicitly. It's not needed, to take his body weight and stuff like that. And him being happy and eating and stuff like that are all good signs. I think him lolloping around. But this is what we see in hospital, isn't it? That you're doped out of your head. You've woken up to be given a sleeping tablet. All those ridiculous things. And, a bowl of cereal in the morning and orange juice and a dessert. And it's just backward thinking. It's just absolutely backward thinking. And dogs are so amazing. And so are humans. Humans can heal. We've got the ability. If I cut my arm, it will heal. I'm not an idiot. You can't break your leg in a road traffic accident and think, getting up and about is going to be a good thing. But in the main, most of the dis-ease, which is what disease is something that we have an immune system that can deal with most things like that. And the medications can take the edge off, can help you sleep, bring your fever down, reduce the inflammation. But all of those things are healing processes. And sometimes a little bit of discomfort may be needed. I mean, the body, if it's got a pathogen and you start having a fever, it's killing the pathogen. That's what it's doing. It's heating it up to kill it, exactly like pasteurizing milk. It's just being the body doing what it's doing. If there's inflammatory response to a knee, when you bang your knee, that's because you need those nutrients there. And what people forget is the inflammatory response is also taking debris away and getting rid of it. So, I think just being a little bit more in tune with your body and understanding it as a wonderful piece of engineering that can heal itself is a good starting point. And I think the way the modern medicine business is run is denying that the body can do anything and everything has to be medicated.
I agree with you there. I think that's exactly that, though, is that the industry has convinced people that the body can't heal itself without their influence, without their medications as such. And I think those that have gone and eaten, say, the carnivore lifestyle or animal-based lifestyle, and the same with animals, you can see that they ribs and bones where they've been left on the street, they get taken in, they get given good nutrition, they get looked after, and you see how their body recovers back to, like, some dogs aren't even recognizable by the time they've got back to health, and it's taken maybe months to get back to that full health. And it's not any different with the humans, is that our bodies were designed to heal. That's why a cut heals itself. But if you're not giving it the right fuel or the right nutrition, how's it going to heal itself? And then sometimes I think certain medications can then be damaging in terms of their side effects, because then the body stops to use its own natural systems to heal itself. And that then can also become an effect.
Yes. And I mean, to answer a question there, sorry to hear about your dog. Was it another dog that attacked him? Yes. Yes, my dog's Rupert, raw meat carnivore. Never been to the vet until yesterday. Yes, it was a dog about 6 times his size. And the owner of that dog said, wow, he's normally tied up, which tells you a lot about that dog. But anyway, we won't get too much into that.
But how old is he? And well, you're taking 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're taking good care of him, as I hear. So that's good. Let's hope that he recovers soon.
Yeah. Yes, and I think that's the thing, Byron. Sorry, but I wanted to answer that question. You're right. If you haven't got the tools to do something, you haven't got the right nutrition. I always use the analogy of a house. If you've got a house and you have to rebuild it all the time, a bit like the GI tract or whatever. Yeah. And vans are going past every day. They're dropping off bricks and glass and tiles and slates and mortar and hammers and nails and all that. You're going to have a house that you can always fix up, whatever happens. Well, if you suddenly say, do you know what, I'm going to go vegan. My house is now going to be vegan. I don't want any of those bricks. I don't want any of that mortar. I'm going to try a different substance that traditionally doesn't build houses. You're going to run into problems. You are going to run into problems. And it's, that's a very poor analogy, but that's essentially it. You need to give your body every single raw material it needs. And what's the body mainly? It's protein and fats. Some people say we're 2% sugars. I would say we're less than 1% sugars. And we don't need it because we can make that from gluconeogenesis. But there's essential amino acids, essential fatty acids that we need to eat. There's no essential carbohydrates. And if we're going to fix our bodies, the immune system has to be able to do its stuff, and anything that suppresses it or stops it working, like, the lack of vitamin D, which is more like a hormone, really, you're in for some trouble. You need your fat soluble vitamins, and so therefore fatty food is good because that's where they are, hence the name. And it's frustrating for me because it's so obvious, and the poor analogies, if you've got a diesel car and you put petrol in it, it's not going to work as well. So we just got to get to the point where we eat the right things and try and do the as we say in Britain, the bleeding obvious. Just do the right food, the right amount of rest, the right amount of light exposure. Try to get in with the circadian rhythms, not by biohacking or taking tablets, but try to get out in the early morning sunlight and try to be mindful of trying to minimize the effect of indoor lights. That's very difficult. I understand that. I appreciate it. I'm a hypocrite. Look, I'm doing it right now. But when I'm not doing this sort of thing, I try to to live in that circadian rhythm. It's not about cortisol, by the way. It's not about blunting the cortisol spike in the morning, which is absolutely needed. There's so much misinformation about cortisol out there. I would not want, I would need another hour. But anyway.
Well, that's a good takeaway message maybe for this episode. But you're going to probably talk more about this in your coming videos, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think this year coming, because people seem to like my Substack, which is daily, I think what I'm going to do now is every time I write a Substack, do a little 5-minute video about it with some nice illustrations about how these things work. And, you know, I think that will be helpful because although people do like to read and be able to click on the links to the studies and see, you know, it's all true or whatever, I think some people like this, what we're doing, just talking it through. Little basic 5-minute video, not all flash graphics and stuff like that. Really simple graphic, how this works, and you know, references in the description, so people, if they don't believe it, they can just click on it and have a look with the knowledge of how to read the study. That makes sense. I see. Circadian rhythm is all about that. Light enters the eye through that. You know, to make it as easy to understand as possible. And once you've got the knowledge, then it's easier for you to make that informed decision about your life. Definitely.
What's been nice as well, though, Stephen, from some of the podcasts that I've watched of yours as well, is that from a medical person's perspective, you put things out there in a simple way. And I tend to find that I think some people have been brainwashed in the way that if someone acts all clever and shows all these scientific papers and all these scientific things, and then they should know better. But we know that is also like a misconception, because at the end of the day, to me, I've always been an advocate of science and action is far better than any theoretical person that tries to put out something that sounds all fancy and it should be all good. But as you say, it's like if someone's eating, they've sorted out their autoimmune issue. How much more evidence can you have than actual physical evidence that is showing what is working, as opposed to theoretical stuff that doesn't really work all the time? I mean, if that was the case, like we went into this new shop today, and it's like a chemical warehouse, if you want to call it that. But the amount of people in there and the amount of stuff they're buying, and you look at a lot of people and you can see some people are not well. If this was the solution, and I'm not saying there's obviously a time and place for medications, but if that was the solution, then surely you'd be seeing more healthy people.
Yes.
But you haven't. So when I have a look at like some of your podcasts, you put out things that are so simple. If someone gets that information and they understand it from a layman's point of view, it's a matter of, okay, well, let me go and apply that, see how I feel. And if I see there's an improvement in my health, well, then surely I'm now starting to go in the right direction. And that's the whole point. Instead of someone says it should be like this, but is it going like that? No. So why would you carry on doing it?
Yeah. I mean, one of my favorite people from my past is a football manager called Brian Clough, who many people watch this probably don't know, but he was great at being succinct and to the point. And before a football match, he was once asked, how are you going to win this match? Now, if you know anything about soccer, they spend hours now analysing what they're going to do and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, he was asked, how are you going to win this match? And he went, we are going to score more goals than them.
That sounds like Johan Cruyff, but
yeah, that's it. That's the plan. Yes, there is more to it than that, but sometimes that's all you need to know. That's it. So yeah, thank you for hosting me again.
Where can people find you, Stephen? I think most of us know it, but maybe.
Okay. Well, I'm the UK Carnivore, so my Substack address is the ukcarnivore.substack.com, and you can subscribe for free, or you can be really great and help me with my research by being a paid subscriber, which is very kind of you. On YouTube, it's just YouTube at Coach Stephen, or you can get it at Stephen Thomas, Bachelor of Science with Honours. And I think that's it. A UK Carnivore on Twitter, or X, as we should say. And I think I'm the UK Carnivore, or UK Carnivore on Instagram as well. But yeah, you'll find me.
With some good Google tactics, that will work probably. Well, then we have Byron. Thank you for the music you always make. You can find Byron at Carnivore Beats, and you can find me as the Dutch Carnivore. And I saw some things in the comments about Tony. He's not ill. He has just been very busy. He was on the road, so he's doing fine. And well, we miss you, Tony. We miss you, Mark. Hopefully you're there next time. I know that Mark is going to have a Christmas holiday break. But otherwise, yeah, Stephen, thank you for being here. Much appreciated. And if you'd like to come another time, would be very nice. Well, our show is every Sunday, 5 p.m. UK time, 6 p.m. Dutch time. Sorry, 6 and 7, I have to say, and 10 a.m. Pacific time.
Cool. Well, so, let's do it every month or something. You know, just keep me posted.
That would be great. Yeah, love it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. Cheers.
Okay, guys. See you next time. Bye.
Cool. Thank you.